So as Dean mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about the resources that are available through the Ecosystems, Benefits, and Risks tab on the portal. So this is a clearinghouse for a lot of the ecosystem services information and data throughout the Appalachian region. So this is just a bunch of compiled information for users to access. And so this will help conservation managers making their decisions. It's comprised of 3 different areas. So there's the guide, and this provides key references to the information, and it groups the data. There's also a conservation atlas. So within this, you can get, abbreviated descriptions of what the data are, and you can also access maps that showcase the data, and you can find links to actually access the data on the web. There are also a group of assessments, so the researchers compiled the assessments that they reviewed to find these benefits and risks. So there's a list of those as well. And so the first, I'm going to show you what the guide looks like. I'm going to show you screenshots from each of the categories. And so within the benefits, you can see that there are several groups of data. So there's water and soils, landscape values and census place, harvested species, and forest carbon. So within each of these, if you go to these categories on the portal, you can access information about multiple data layers that fit within these groups. And so the categories are pretty self-explanatory, and there's also a PDF icon up here. You can actually download a PDF of the benefits, so it'll be a summary document of the benefits within the area. There's also the risk category. So this is the risk associated with the benefits that you saw on the previous slide. And these are also organized in the same way within groups. So this category has 5 groups of data. And you'll be able to, if you go further in, you'll see a breakdown of different data layers within these groups. Next, I want to show you an example of information that is available within the guide. So we're going to go into one of the categories, and this forest carbon is within a benefits category. So when you go into a description, you can see that there is a general information here. There's risk factors. So if it's within the benefits, you'll see risk factors associated with that. And you also have a list of references. And this is really nice because it not only tells you the assessments that were used, but it also provides a hyperlink to that document. So if you want to look into that further, you're able to do that really easily and find that information. The next category is the Conservation Atlas. So this is a little different. It provides a brief summary of the data, but it also will provide you maps and you're able to view the data within that. So there are similar categories as to what was available in the guide, and this is an example of the different categories that are comprise the benefit category. So you can see the forest to faucet data layers, there's forest industry, there's carbon mapping. So you can see these are all examples of the data that you can access within this category. There's also a risk category similar to what was in the guide. And once again, these are groups of data. You can see the information, the different data resources that are available within this category. And in addition to those, there's also a human landscape category, and this is not one that we saw in the guide. So this information is needed to help assess the benefits and risks, because the benefits that are derived from the landscape depend not just on what the ecosystem's present, but also on the people present and how they use these. So this was an important category as well. And you can see an example of some of the data layers that are included within this category. So if you're in the data atlas, you can look in one of those categories, and this is an example of one of the risks. So this is the invasive species and forest pathogens group within the risk. And so you'll see that there's a summary here, and so it gives you a little information about that category. And then you also see links, so you see down here in the data atlas, there are two categories of their data here. So if you click on one of these forest pathogens, it will take you to a summary page for that data where you have a more specific description of that data layer, and there are thumbnail maps that you can see here of the data. And this was also available on the data summary page. You can also, if you click on these maps, you can also expand it to a larger image if you want to view that a little closer. You can learn more and access the data. Here is the link here, so I'd mentioned that within this guide, you were able to go back and find links to the data. So this will take you to information about the original publisher of the data. And if these reference by links, this will take you back to the guide that I showed you first. So that just takes you back to the summary of that data grouping within the AppLCC portal. A nice thing about these data layers now is that we have also moved them into Databasin. So within Databasin, you'll be able to download them. So you can preview the data here, and you'll be able to download it. So this is then a screenshot of Databasin. So once you get into Databasin, you'll see the AppLCC has a gallery here, and we have multiple folders within the gallery. All the ecosystem services data are within this folder here, and you can see that it has 41 items. So if you click on that ecosystem services, it'll pull down a drop-down menu, and you'll be able to view a thumbnail of all the data layers that are included, and from there you can download like I showed you in the previous slide, or you can open in a map viewer if you just want to view it through the web. So there's a lot of flexibility that you can do, and we tried to make it really easy for users to access the data. And this is a screenshot of what the Conservation Planning Atlas for the Appalachian LCC will look like. And we expect that to be finalized in a couple weeks. So we're within a gallery right now, but we will have our own Conservation Planning Atlas shortly. And you can see there'll be links to other LCCs, and we'll have multiple galleries then within our own Conservation Planning Atlas. That's just to give you an idea of what is coming. So I've mentioned a little bit about the data and resources that are available, and we want managers to be able to look at our tools, and then the tools can help, and they can feed that information to field users in the field, and then so it's all an interactive piece. So we have managers, users, and all of our tools, and they're all interacting together. And I wanted to show you an example of how that interaction occurs. So first, a user in the field might run the riparian prioritization tool, and you've all heard about that. So here's just an example of what an output from the RPCCR looks like. And you can see that this area here in the red circle, you see the dark blue areas. Those are areas based on parameters that were set in this window to the left that a user specified to try and identify areas that they want riparian corridors to focus on. So this is an area in the upper James and Virginia. So you can see we want to look at this a little closer, but we also want to consider potential energy development within that area and how that could affect our decisions. So this area in the first map on the left, it zooms in a little bit and shows you where we ran the riparian analysis. So this is the same analysis that was run. And if we overlay that, we can see that some of these areas do have a high risk of wind energy development. Then on the right, you can also see these yellow hash marks also indicate these are watersheds that have bad occurrences. So we know that this area could be important for riparian protection. It also has a high risk for wind energy development, and has a watershed with a listed bat occurrence. So all of these are adding up as to an area that is likely important. And so you can see I've also overlaid this with the bat occurrences. You can see these large yellow blobs are where bats have been known to occur. And so this is also, you can see that this matches up with the other maps that I just showed you. So we know this area is pretty important. We also then want to look at, okay, we know the ecosystem, we know that there's important species there, we know there's things that we're worried about and concerned about. We want to look and see, with its ecosystem benefits and risks, are there additional concerns, are there additional risks to these species that we've identified? And so I mentioned bats, but so then we wanted to say, okay, are there potential impacts to, you know, their food sources? And so one of the things we looked at just as for this example was invasive species and forest pathogens and how this could potentially affect the bats and resources that they need. And so this is color-coded. You can see this is the same area on this map on the lower left-hand side. And within this one, these dash marks indicate those same hucks with bat occurrences. So we can look and see that this area, there's no of the really dark blue areas that have a high threat, but if we go over here, this is a slightly different area on the map. It's just underneath that red square, that this area, sorry about that, this area does have a higher risk. So it currently doesn't have the riparian, but this could be an area that is at risk that we also might want to focus on. So we look at all of these information sources and we can combine them together to make a picture of what is needed for the conservation resources. So envision all of these pieces interacting together to help managers and users in the field make decisions on their workload and their priorities. Does anybody have, that was kind of quick, but does anybody have any questions they want to ask real quick before we move on to the next presentation?
Jessica, are you going to go ahead and talk about the online training?
Oh, yes, sorry about that. Yeah, so we have, we have all these tools and resources, but we have a lot of users that want to use them, which is great, but so we don't have the resource to go out and teach them in person. So what we've done is we started the development of an online learning platform, and this is a screenshot of an example of some of the courses that we currently have available that we're working on. The riparian prioritization tool, that one is a complete course, and what these courses do is they allow users to walk through a self-paced learning environment, which includes videos and some text that they read, and they also have instructional exercises that they will walk through with the assistance of handouts that will help them learn the technical aspects of using the tool. And we also have assessment quizzes to help users understand and gauge if they have understood the important points and what the tools are intended to do. And a final component of each of these classes and platforms is that we also have a feedback mechanism. So we get feedback from the users on how the tool worked for them, how the class worked for them, and any additional features and resources that they might want additional classes on. So we want to have that feedback loop going so we can make these tools and classes the most useful for our users and provide the most support to the conservation community. And the URL for that is at the bottom of this slide. And that was the last step. And so this is my contact information. If you have any questions, you can contact me about any of the tools, resources, the online learning platform.